This is Sheriff Ozzie Knezovich with the Sheriff's Report, soon to be known as the Badge. With my retirement looming in December, Ken Adams, and his team have decided to start morphing the format into the ability for law enforcement leaders across the region to come in and address the public. So in the next few months, we'll be wrapping up the Sheriff's Report. It's been an interesting 13-year ride, and something I never thought I'd be doing. When it was first offered to me way back when by Tom Reed, this was also a radio program, I was like, Tom, I'm a street cop. I really don't understand much about radio or any of this. He said, oh, you'll do fine. I said, how often would you like to do it? Once a week. I went, are you crazy? But it's been a really good ride. It's been really interesting. I've been able to meet a lot of great people, work with a lot of people, great people. More importantly, bring you what's really going on rather than what you read in the newspaper or watch on the evening news, because you're not being told the truth. And I'll be very blunt with you. Very rarely do they actually accurately depict the context of truly what's going on. And that is a true shame. I spent 2 hours with two reporters Sunday fixing a story that they did. And that story was based on a false information given to them by a sheriff's candidate by the name of Wade Nelson. He lied to them. So we walked up and down the areas, and I was out in the valley, Sprague University. Mm-hmm. He said there's a 100-person homeless camp there. So we walked everywhere. He said, well, then he changed to, well, it's at the Appleway trailhead. So we went there, and we walked up the street, up the trail, ran into a group of families coming down the trail, asked them about the homeless issue. What homeless issue? When the reporter said, well, he said it was a month ago, and they went, no, there was never anything here. Even a month ago, there was never anything here. And I looked at those reporters and went, look, you put this out, and you printed this as fact without fact checking. How does that work? You did this without fact checking. I said, a lot of people think I don't like reporters. I don't like journalists. Not true. I have immense respect for you. But I have lost all respect for you because you're no longer doing your job. You have a constitutionally protected responsibility to the citizens. And that is to do your job and do it right. And not to give them your opinion, but to give them the facts and let them decide. We need to get back to that. There was a time we trusted the media. I was a weird kid. When I was 5 years old, I'd sit and watch the evening news, Walter Cronkite. If Walter said something, the American people went, gospel. It's not that way anymore. Take a look at all the polling that's done. They have lost faith in you, media. Matter of fact, I can't tell you how many people, when I'm talking about issues, and I say, well, it was in this story, Sheriff, we wouldn't know because we don't watch the news. We don't read the paper anymore. We don't trust them anymore. Our society, a free society, depends on a free press. Our founding fathers knew that. But you have given up your right to be trusted. Let's try to fix that someday. And part of this show today is an outgrowth of that. I do YouTube videos at the Sheriff's Office to give you facts. You can find them on our YouTube channel or our Facebook. And about 8 months ago, I did a video and I called out several people because we had a shooting incident at Sprague and Crestline, where two opposing gangs fired up that intersection in cars at shooting each other, and it's amazing nobody got hit. But here's the good news. Remember when we said we were forming a regional task force to go after this issue? Well, we have identified all those folks, and we're going to go get them. That's what we can do when we put our efforts together. But you know, when I called those folks out, I challenged them to come to my office, meet with me every Friday at 9 o'clock to help work and resolve issues for you, the people. Because you're the ones suffering all this. We're the ones suffering all this because I live in this community. None of them showed up. None of the ones invited showed up. Now, Councilperson Cathcart, Bingle, the mayor, they showed up. Several of our representatives showed up. I believe Jenny Graham showed up. Yeah. So, but none of those invited ever showed up. Marcus Riccelli and Andy Billick did have a meeting with me where they accused me of using white supremacist tactics to try to divide the African American community. I thought that was unique. I mean, I'm so tired of being called a racist, but that was a beautiful thing. But who did show up? Something happened that I didn't anticipate happening, because we did have a meeting that next Friday after I announced this, and citizens showed up. And citizens from across the spectrum showed up. From the libertarian side to the progressive side and everything in between showed up. At one point, it got so big that I had to move it to a different room because my conference room couldn't handle it. And during that time, this group, it was amazing to watch, they coalesced together. And pretty soon I was able to step back from being the front person of that and the moderator of that, and they came together and they formed a group, Citizens for a Safe Spokane. They meet weekly, and one of their spokespeople are with me here in the studio, J.J. Johnson.
Good morning, Sheriff.
And they got with me and said, Sheriff, we're ready. We're ready to make it go public. We're ready to do the mission. So I'm going to let JJ talk a little bit about what you've been doing, what your mission is, what your thought process is, and what your goals are. Because, folks, it was really neat to sit back and watch. And just so you know, there were some very tense meetings at times. There were some, but it was really neat to be able to watch people of different perspectives be able to have those tough, hard-hitting dialogues and not take it personal. To have those tough, hard-hitting dialogues and still go, I might not agree with you 100%, but I can agree with you here, and this is where we can go. It was actually what our founding fathers envisioned was, yeah, we are different, but we are the same. And as long as we can work together, we can be united together, and we can solve the problems for our country. This is a microcosm of what we used to be and what we need to get back to. So, absolutely. JJ, how's it been?
It's been quite a growth experience for me, Sheriff. I have always been apolitical my entire life. And I was to the point where I didn't think that was possible anymore. But I decided I was going to take you up on your challenge. The challenge wasn't directed to me. And you and I have discussed several times, we don't both use the same messaging tactics, but we don't have to agree on everything. We just simply need to know that when we agree there is a problem, we can come together and find a solution for it. So the first several weeks, you spent a lot of time educating the group, bringing up past data, facts, things that are available to the public but not normally discussed out in public. They're definitely not talked about during political meetings. And I think the entire group began to realize that we're in trouble. I am a local guy, born at Sacred Heart. Lived here my whole life, traveled all the way around the world, but Spokane is a special place. We prove it every year. We prove it with Expo 74. We prove it with Bloomsday. With when we decide to have a tiny little basketball tournament that turns into tens of thousands of people playing, coming together. So as things began to progress, there was a lot of conversation about politics that would pop up occasionally. And what the group ended up realizing is that politics isn't the answer. Making sure we have proper policy is the answer. So after several weeks, we got together and realized that labels were a no-no. We couldn't use labels. We needed to keep rhetoric out of our conversation. Spent some time and came up with a vision statement. I'd like to read that vision statement if I could.
Please
I
do.
just want to make sure I get it right because we spent quite a bit of time to make sure that this accurately describes what we want to do. So the vision statement for Citizens for a Safe Spokane. Our vision is one where diverse individuals come together in nonpartisan, respectful unity to find sensible paths toward a more safe and hopeful future. We're all in the Spokane region. So I think the key is respect and unity. And if we can't have those, we're not going to win. The area is going to continue to downgrade. We need to stop pointing fingers at each other and only point fingers to the person in the mirror. If we haven't done everything we could today, we haven't done everything we could. So that's where the group has gotten to at this point. So for our mission, what we want to accomplish, we want to educate the public on the factors impacting the recent increasing crime trends and sensible solutions to those factors. So part of our focus is going to be making sure that the media does do their job and that there's information available. We want to promote effective policies and the people who support those policies, which incorporate real accountability throughout the entire justice system. Because without accountability, you're never going to get anywhere. I think anybody who has a child knows that, right? To coordinate non-government organizations to better utilize available funding sources, avoid duplicate services, create solutions, and rehabilitation opportunities. We use the word opportunities because you can't force someone into rehabilitation. But if they have the opportunities, they might make that right choice. Over the course of several weeks, we learned that there was over 1,200 faith-based organizations in this area that are focused on that particular mission. But they're duplicating their services. They're fighting over the same funding. And there is no place where an individual who wants help could just go and find the help that they need.
There is no clearinghouse.
Correct.
That was
Correct.
one of the things that we identified very early on, and when I was giving you the educational part of the history, basically the institutional knowledge of what had gone on for the 16 years that I've been sheriff and what I had seen. JJ, Ann Kirkpatrick, when she was chief, and I got invited to a 501c3. They wanted to talk to us, so we went up. And of course, they wanted to have us on their brochures, so, it would help with the fundraising that. And Ann said something that was spot on. Exactly what this group came up with was her quote. Okay, that's fine. You can throw me on this brochure. And the sheriff, he's going to say yes too, because he and I were just at another 501c3 a couple of days ago for the same ask. But when are you all going to work together?
Right.
You're competing for the same thing.
Right.
If you came together and worked together, you could be much stronger in what you're trying to achieve.
Right.
And there is no clearinghouse. If you asked, where do I go? Well, the closest thing that I can think of is the Fig Tree comes out with a directory
Yes.
every year.
Yes.
So you would basically have to get the Fig Tree directory and go through and make all the phone calls yourself, rather
Right.
than going to
Right.
a centralized, clearinghouse of what's your problem. Oh yeah, that would be XYZ over here. That problem? That's over here
Right.
on ABC.
Right.
But, amen to what you just said. It is time for people to stop worrying about lining pockets and start thinking about, how do we actually approach this?
Right. Start working as a team so you can be successful. One more mission that I want to make sure we bring in, because it is just as important as all the rest of them, to encourage private and public entities in business, education, service clubs, sports, recreation, and our faith-based community to create mentorship, housing, and job prospects to aid in crime prevention and develop a sense of self-worth, ownership, and belonging. We all know that if a child is influenced with trauma and doesn't get the help they need, the chances of them growing as they should are greatly reduced.
It is, and the ones that do make it, JJ, you know what they're called.
Right.
They're called survivors.
Right.
Right. That's the true clinical word that are used for people that came from that type of environment, was they survived it. Not sure how they survived it, but they survived it.
Right. Well,
and they were productive afterwards.
It's pretty amazing. If you look at some of the most extraordinary people in our history, in American history, almost every one of them had some kind of childhood trauma.
Yes.
And they survived it. The problem is that not enough people do. Too many people get lost in their trauma, and that's when we start having addiction problems. That's when we have domestic violence, grows into the domestic violence issue. That's when they start losing their home. I mean, it just turns into a big cycle. And so we want to make sure that we provide the opportunities to break those cycles.
And one of the more interesting parts about, though, is what you point out is there have been many people in our history that have done that. But even though they're called survivors, each and every one of them still had those ghosts.
Right.
Still had
those voices.
Still had that still impacted them negatively, and it was a continual fight to overcome
Right.
that past. Those ghosts never truly go away.
Correct. And so it's a lifelong battle, and we know that. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
So the other day we met for breakfast, and you said, "Okay, I think we're ready. We need to get out. We need to make sure that people understand that we do exist. We're here.
Right.
We're at that point." And I said, "Okay, we'll bring you in. We'll do the podcast. That will be the first launch. Then I'm setting up some meetings with some of the folks that might be able to help your effort within the community, and then hopefully they'll help us to get the media on board to help spread the word and help you reach out into the community and grow, because folks, JJ kind of alluded to it, but I'm going to put a little bit finer point on it. We banned politics in this group. And we did it intentionally, very intentionally. And that was a struggle.
It was.
You know, I'm not saying that everybody said, "Oh yeah," and we sang "Kumbaya." No, that was kind of knock down, drag out for a little while, but finally people realized that if we hold those broken animosities, we could never really unite.
No.
And it really takes me back to what George Washington said in his farewell address: "Beware the party system; it will destroy America." He said it very clearly in those terms. And it has. It has divided us into camps, into tribes. We're
Yes.
not Americans anymore. We're Republicans. We're Democrats. We're Libertarians. We're progressives. You name it. The lists keep going and going and going. But we forget what we truly are is one nation. We are Americans first, and if we can get back to this is our community and bring it down to the granular level, we all got to live with each other. We have to survive with each other, and we will stand together, or literally we will swing together. I'll take it back to the old vernacular of the birth of this nation, because if we can't do this, if we can't, JJ and I, as much as we respect each other, we don't agree 100%
No,
at
not
all.
even close. Nope.
But we can, and I can support JJ. I supported JJ in his run for Valley City Council. Why? And people ask me this ad nauseum. Because I can trust him, because he doesn't like politics, and he's apolitical. That's why.
The thing that was amazing with the group was once we were able to get over that threshold, it was amazing how the conversation freed up. Everyone relaxed. No one was trying to defend a position anymore, because our position was to solve a problem.
Yes.
Not to prove something that we thought when we walked in the room, but to learn something so that when we walk out of the room, we're stronger and more together and closer to our solution. And that's what it's all about. It's about making things happen. So,
It is. And it's not about the dogma anymore.
no,
You know, you're absolutely right. And I had a chance to sit back in a corner and just watch this thing morph into what it is. And there were times I was like, "Oh, we're falling apart. This is about ready to shatter." But you know, by the end of the meeting, it was people would be going, "Okay, I get it. All right, I understand." And then there were sidebars afterwards, and they'd be going, "You know, and I loved hearing the words. I apologize. You know, I apologize. I got a little rowdy there for a minute." And they started realizing that the commonality of all of us is what? We want a safe place to live.
Yep.
We want to go out, be able to go to work, play, have our kids be able to have a future.
Right.
That's our commonality. We are in this together. We are united in that, and we can make this happen. And you said something. Policy. Kind of explain what that really is so people can understand why it went from politics to policy.
Well, politics, I think, is more about intentions. Individuals have a concept, well, this is how things should work. And so then they attempt to develop a policy that fits.
Preconceived.
With that preconceived notion, right. A lot of times those preconceived notions are developed at a 30,000-foot level. They're looking at this huge, grandiose picture, talking with other individuals that are looking at the grandiose picture, and they don't really take the time to get down to the street level, to the boots on the ground who are actually making things happen. And so what they end up with is unintended consequences. And the policy might have had all of the greatest intentions in the world, but if it doesn't work on the other end, you've failed.
Exactly.
And that's what we need to make sure that we're focused on, is what we're going to end up with a product. And so we need to make sure that we're bringing people in, yes, at the 30,000 foot level, but also individuals right at the street level who understand that if you do A, B, and C, you're not going to get E, F, and G, right? You're going to get chaos, and here's why. And then we can develop policies that really do fulfill our intentions.
Very good. We have about 4 minutes left.
Okay.
What's next? Because, folks, I've made it clear to the group that I will always be here as a sounding board for them. I'll always be here for them to understand some institutional knowledge of, okay, Sheriff, how did we really get here? What was the behind the scenes discussions? But at the same time, they know that December 31st, I'm gone out of the area. You can reach me by phone at any time, and if you really need, I will come back up to protect this community again, and help you out. But what's next? How do you sustain? Because remember, you and I had this discussion.
Mm-hmm.
How do we sustain what you have, and more importantly, how do we make it grow?
Well, I think the time now is for a few of those individuals who are coming early to our meetings to return. We have the possibility, if we bring all players to the table, we have the possibility to really make some positive change. We're going to be working hard to get some messages out. We are going to change our meeting schedule just a little bit. Friday mornings at 9 o'clock, Sheriff, might have worked great for you, but a lot of the rest of us folks have day jobs.
Right.
So we're going to swing to a first and Thursday evening meeting schedule. If anyone wants any information on that, they can go to Citizens for a Safe Spokane. We've got a Facebook page. It's fledgling, but we're getting there. So we want to make sure that we're getting the word out. We're going to continue to grow. We've had interviews with several of the key players, politicians. We brought Mike Sparber in, who gave us some great information on exactly what's happening with the jail. And oh my gosh, is that a frightening situation? Folks,
I've been
we
trying
need to get some work done here.
I've been trying to warn people about that one for 16 years.
Right. But we can do this. We can do this if we put our tribal instincts aside and realize that we've got some problems. And together, if we work together in respectful unity, right? We don't have to agree on 100%. We just have to agree on the next step is, and this is where we want to go.
Right.
It's about finding the paths to our end goals, and we can do that together.
And JJ, I truly believe that this could be a spark that could heal a nation. All things start with a small spark. If you can maintain and you can continue and you can make this grow, and you can prove that you can be successful, you just might be able to be the key that could bring it all back together. Because I do a lot of traveling, and I hear what you're saying. I hear people going, we need to, we used to, but there's not been that spark to bring us back together going, okay, do we really like what's going on here? Do we really like that we can't walk down the street anymore? Or do we really like that when it becomes dark, we won't come down to downtown Spokane and walk through our beautiful parks?
Right.
Do we really like the fact that our children are killing each other?
Right.
Do we really like this? Well, how do we fix this? And this group, it would have been a great research program or study to watch people from extreme
Right.
polar opposites, come together and focus on, all right, it's not really about us, it's about all of us. It's not about my belief, it's about all of us being able to get our lives back. Because right now, you're basically living under this cloud of tyranny, and that tyranny, I'm not talking in the sense of political tyranny. I'm talking about in a sense of tyranny that you're afraid. There are things going in our community that makes us afraid, and we can't do certain things, and we're restricted. That environment is what tyranny is truly all about, is keeping people afraid and down.
Right.
And if you want to break that, it takes a group. JJ, all I can say is thank you. Thank you because when you stepped up to be the kind of the lead, I was like, we'll see how this one plays out, because I know some of the personalities, but they realized too that, yeah, we can do this, and you have that nature about you. But thank you, because this is not easy, and you will become a pummeling horse, or you'll join me in my role of pinata.
It's all good.
Because that's what can happen. But thank you for taking the time and the chance.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity today to share the information, Oz.
Take care.
All
Folks, this is Sheriff Ozzie Knezovich. If you're interested, please go to the Facebook site, Citizens for a Safe Spokane. Together, we can change this dynamic. But if you remain divided, you're going to see worse happen to our community. Spokane is truly one of the greatest places I've ever been. I've always said it's a diamond in the rough. If it ever figures out what it wants to be when it grows up, it will be amazing. But we're losing it. We are losing it because of bad policy, and we're losing it because we are divided. Thank you for listening.